Oh, a 19-year-old Judith Kennedy. Goodness me, I was so naive then. What would I tell her? I think I would tell her to do exactly what I've done and and to make it a good one.
I feel like young people seem to dismiss the older generation, as if they're no longer the people that they were back in their day. Although they may not be growing up in the same world that we are, I think that the human experience is something that never grows too old to hear. I like painting portraits. I feel like I can capture something that a digital image can't. I wanted to draw someone that has a lot to say about life. Last week, I interviewed a recipient of the Order of Australia Award. Pioneer, an author, a CEO, an advocate for women's rights and children's health, a mother, a grandmother, and someone who has lived like 10 lives into one. Today I'm painting a woman named Judith Kennedy AM.
Hi, I'm Judith Kennedy. I live in New South Wales in Australia, and I was born on the west coast of Australia in a little town called Harvey, but I live here now in Sydney. I lived on a dairy farm until the age of 6, and it was a very small dairy farm down in the south of Western Australia. When you are at school in a small private school in the 60s, there were only two options professionally when you left, and that was teaching or nursing. And I was very keen to become a nurse. I was a bit young and a bit silly and wanted to move on, and at the age of 20 I married and started a family. And in those days, in the 60s, you had to leave nursing school, so I didn't complete my nursing. I had 4 children. As a young married mum, I was looking for some activity outside the home. Along the way, I developed quite a strong interest in the media, and I became interested in film production. I became the resident producer at the Film Institute, and we started making documentaries.
It's cool to see how Judith moved from film to go back and finish her nursing degree. However, from what she had told me, a trip to Perth changed her life. Her brother, who was a winemaker, suggested that someone should organise an award system to award the little guys. With the skills she had picked up from a time in the film industry, Judith dove headfirst and led a completely new business in an industry she has no experience in. Stepping into uncertain waters would terrify most, but definitely not Judith.
The company name was the Boutique Winemakers Association of Australia. It was giving the little guys, the mums and dads, winemakers, the opportunity to have their wine judged for the first time on a national basis, and for those wines then to be given exposure at a big dinner and at a public function. In 1996, I put together the very first wine industry festival for the boutique winemakers, and that was in Sydney. We had thousands of people wanting to buy tickets, and the press gave a lot of notoriety to the little tiny winemakers who had done so well in the judging. And in 2017, I decided to sell both wine businesses. Age was starting to catch up with me a little bit, but more significantly, arthritis was catching up with me, and I really needed a rest.
So, were you considering retirement coming to the end of your work in the wine industry?
Retirement's a funny word. Yes, I retired for about 2.5 weeks. I was quite convinced that I could rest and I could look after my health and that I wouldn't work. But I had so much information and I had put together such an interesting infrastructure that my dear friend Ewan Hook suggested to me that if I really wanted to do something, maybe the gin distilling industry needed a leader. During my time with wine and the gin industry, I've always favoured assisting the little struggling ones, giving them an opportunity that maybe otherwise they wouldn't have. And I'm really proud of that.
So, would you say it was your parents that inspired you to have such a drive and ambition?
Strangely, no. My parents gave us a lot of love, but what they did give us is education. And I was educated by the Mercy nuns, and I found them to be a wonderful community of women who did influence us and who did engender a drive in us. I think I've successfully passed on to my children a lot of positive elements.
Judith was talking to us yesterday about how her parents were very loving and things like that, but they didn't instill a drive, and she kind of prides herself on instilling that in you guys. Do you think that's fair?
I think it's hard you can't say that to children, or you can't, you have to demonstrate it. And I think Mum has definitely, as a role model, you won't find someone more motivated or more entrepreneurial.
She's driven, she's very creative. She's always been quite creative, and she is a hard worker.
What would you consider a successful life would be?
I think being fair as you go, and being fair means treating everybody equally, not just men, women, but people cleaning, people in high positions. Treat them equally. And the wonderful positive thing nowadays is that anybody can have a go.
Over your lifetime, you've had several successful careers. What would be your secret, you'd say?
Well, the important thing that I realise is that we only have one life. That this life for all of us is not a dress rehearsal. It's the real deal. And I personally felt, especially being influenced by the nuns and by various people through my professional life, that why stick to one thing? If you achieve a certain level, move on, find something else, make your life more interesting. And when you're 99 years old, sitting on the veranda, having a G&T, you need to be able to look back and say, well, I really had a good shot. I did as much as I could. I did it well. I left a good legacy, and I've had an interesting life.